Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining me. So it's Sunday at 7. So we're ready to chat about our next of our 1946 London lectures. So then this evening we're going to be looking at the 1946 London lectures. We are on lecture 24, which was given by Montessori in London on the 19th of November 1946. And this is about the construction of the imagination. But before I discuss the lecture with you, I first of all want to consider what is imagination. So I find imagination is quite often misunderstood and people think it's pretend play or fantasy. But Montessori shows us that imagination is far deeper than this. It's a far more powerful thing. And I want to give you some examples. So if you're sat there now and you can imagine your favourite meal or your favourite place to be, you can bring an image into your head, can't you? You can see what doesn't exactly exist. You can think in the abstract. So imagination is about this ability to think what's not present. And it allows us to form images in our mind of things maybe that we've not yet seen and things we haven't experienced. We can imagine what they might be like. So then our mind has this power to create new ideas, to make new connections, to pull together pieces of information and little bits of knowledge and think of something greater. And it's why as humans then we can progress. We've not stayed the same. We can come up with cures for things and visit new places and consider going to the moon, for example. So imagination is not just play. It's not about imaginative play. It's having a brain that can imagine what isn't present in front of us, okay? So it's this work of the brain that actually forms human intelligence. So imagination, as Montessori says, moves humanity forwards. Every discovery, each invention we come up with our achievements, things we do within our cultures, it all begins with our imaginations. Our dances, our music, our acting, everything comes from our imagination as humans. So in Montessori's words then, imagination is the special power of the human species. Without it, we'd be no more intelligent than any other animal. So if we look through this talk, and I've actually gone through it and made some notes because as I've explained before, I can't read these books to you because of copyright rules. So there's different rules in different countries, but basically unless a book has been published for at least 25 years, the person has died and that's the author, not the original person. So this obviously has been rewritten by somebody. So I can't share it directly with you, but I can read it, I can analyse it, and I can give you my own version and tell you where it's come from. So the first thing then is human intelligence versus animal intelligence. And in this talk, Montessori says that, animals can recognise forms and patterns, but their intelligence has limits. And she gives an example of someone whose dog could identify the letters dog as taught, okay? But it's not, they didn't learn to read, they couldn't read any text input in front of them. It was a really limited thing that the dog was trained to do. So animals can recognise particular forms and patterns, but it's very limited. Humans, though, through imagination, go beyond recognition. We go to creating things and constructing things, don't we? Such as our written languages. So many things, our artworks. We have amazing imagination to think, this is what I'm going to do. And we see it developing children, don't we? Our younger child doesn't look at the building blocks and think, oh, amazing, I wonder what I can do. They can't do that planning ahead. But our 3-year-olds and our 4-year-olds and our 5-year-olds, they work with a purpose. They can imagine the end result and they can see the stages to get there as well. And we see the brain developing that way. So Montessori tells us that imagination is the true form of human intelligence. So imagination allows us humans to think what's not present, to come up with these ideas, to actually take impressions and ideas and make them concrete, to bring it into our culture. And it's how we as humans then progress, isn't it? If we think back 100 years to cures and things that didn't exist, yet we have them now, to technology that wasn't there, yet we have it now. Somebody has imagined that, come up with a plan, worked out the stages of doing things, and then perfected it a bit more, and added a little bit more, and made it newer. And we've moved, haven't we, from having a radio to having the amazing technology we have today, all through the power of the human brain. So Montessori reminds us then where it all starts, this inner activity of the child in the absorbent mind stage. So we have 0 to 6, don't we? In the first part, the child unconsciously then is absorbing from all around them impressions from the environment and learning from it. And this is like our raw material. This is our start for our later imaginative work. We have to build this concrete base for the child, all of these ideas and things they need to experience, to take all of the things that do exist and to grow from them. So imagination then in our cultures, without imagination, we wouldn't have them, would we? We wouldn't have come up with the beautiful artwork we do on our bodies if we couldn't imagine to do it. If we couldn't imagine what we could have made the inks with, what the patterns could look like. We wouldn't all have different types of cultural dance and new music coming up all the time that people are imagining how different sounds and different beats could go. Our artwork wouldn't have changed. It would just be the same, but now we have amazing artists who have all different designs, don't we? And then also in science, a huge field that has progressed because of human intelligence driven by our imagination, what we think could happen in the future, what we think we could design, what we think we could find a cure for, because our brains work that way. And we take the knowledge we already have and we build on it and we experiment and we try something new and we look at the results and did it work, and we can go back and try again. All of that wonderful trial and error that starts simply with our sensorial apparatus in our classroom, with our cylinder block. That didn't work. I'll try a different solution for that. Oh, now I've worked out the problem and I've solved it for myself. At 3 years old, our children are gaining these skills to be able to work and imagine and build on their intelligence, which is why our work is so vitally important. So imagination then is not fantasy alone. It's the reconstruction of reality, isn't it? It's taking what we know, adding to it, recreating a new reality, an improved reality. So children then build on these sensory impressions that we have shared with them. All of this beautiful work that we have in our classrooms, they've created their knowledge and now they're going beyond what they can see. We have empowered them to go on and do more in the future because they have learned that they can work, that they own their mistakes, that they can redo things, that they can try and try again. And it's absolutely fine. They don't have to be fearful of making a mistake and not going back to the work. They own that mistake. They can imagine through different possibilities and create scenarios and become great thinkers of the future. So someone said to me the other day, I saw a post, it was about, how do we make children think? We don't make them think. They can already think. What we need to give them is opportunities and things to think about, to imagine what the options could be. So there's two great factors in human growth. How do we do this? Activity, through our exploration. Our children build this intelligence, like I've said, from all of these experiences we have. And the more experiences we can give to them in our classroom, in our homes, in our communities, all of the possible places they can go to and explore. They can go to a swimming pool, or they can go to an orchard, or an allotment, or a theatre, or a cinema, or a museum. There are so many activities, to the woodlands, to the forest school, just on a walk. So many wonderful things for children to explore that builds on their intelligence, that consolidates ideas from them. And from there, they come up with new ideas, don't they? So today, I was wrapping a parcel to send to somebody because I sell things on Vinted, which is a selling site in the UK, and the money we raise on Vinted actually helps fund our schools in Africa, especially our school in Uganda. And so today I wrapped up a parcel and it was ready to send, but Roman decided it wasn't ready to send. He imagined the parcel looking differently. And he's also in a stage of enveloping schema. He's liking to hide things and put himself between things. So he saw the parcel and the tape and asked me if he could add a little bit more tape to it. And I left the room and I came back and I just sat and watched him. And this is how Roman imagined that a wrapped parcel should look. So he worked until every millimetre of the box and the wrapping paper is covered, because he imagined that's what it should look like. So this is his work, and I respected that, and I sat back and I just observed, because I thought it was wonderful to see him take his enveloping schema, his need to cover it, And he knew what he wanted to do. He had a plan. He imagined when he had finished that the box would be completely covered. And that was his activity, his exploration, building his intelligence through experience and the skills he learnt, how to use the scissors, how to wind the tape, how to change direction with the tape, all amazing, amazing skills that will serve him well through his whole life. We'd have no idea when he could take these things and use these skills again, but they are there, and he imagined that for himself, his end goal. So then he's gone beyond the present, he's gone beyond how I'd wrap the parcel, and he's constructed his new way of wrapping a parcel, which is to cover all of it. And children do this in all parts of life, don't they? They go beyond what we currently have. We want them to construct new knowledge and add things to the human race as well. Things that are amazing, things that are good, things that are cures, new ways to build buildings, new things to construct with, new ways to bring energy into our homes. There's so much for our children to do in the future that we can gear them up with by giving them this amazing education with these beautiful resources. Imagination, also we need to fill gaps, don't we? So when children do have gaps, what do? They ask questions. So, where is Australia? How do I get there? Is it next to Africa? So how can I get from Australia to Africa? What do you mean there's countries? Are there countries on all continents then? And children have these gaps, don't they? But the amazing thing is, their imagination is enabling them to ask these questions. They're things that are not concrete to them. They've not been there. They don't have this knowledge. They don't have a full understanding. But actually, by asking a question, driven by their imagination, they're connecting, aren't they, fragments of knowledge and putting them all together to make a fuller plan in their brain. And this brings them a lot of joy and happiness. So they ask more questions and they develop a bigger picture in their brain, and it becomes more knowledge, and then they can make sense of reality, and they start to have a real understanding of the planet, the earth, the continents, the different countries, the different cultures, the different ways of life. And that all works as well then towards our education for peace and our having a better understanding of each other. It comes from the child's imagination thinking, there must be more to this. I'll ask a question. What could there be that I'm missing? So children then have within this, don't they, sensitive periods in their life. This periods when they want more knowledge. They understand there's more out there. Around 5 to 6 years of age, children's imaginations are really active and powerful, according to Montessori, and they want more from us, and they ask more, and they demand more answers to their sensible questions. And it's a really lovely stage to be at with the children. Although Roman is only 4, and I have my home ed group, but the children are 4, 5 and 6, I see within them this question asking and this needing the knowledge and wanting to know. I spoke about the little boy who had out the solar system and the planets and his questions as well. He was trying to make sense and imagine things that weren't quite in his mind yet, but what could he ask to add this knowledge as well? So when we look at the child's brain then, we're now looking at the absorbent mind, aren't we, versus constructive imagination. So our absorbent mind, our 0 to 6 age, this passive absorption to start with, but then actively reconstructing and reasoning and connecting and putting all of these ideas together. These are all essential stages, aren't they, in human development. What we've absorbed in our 0 to 3 age, what we've purposely gone out and learning our social skills as well and developing those, and then being able to construct new ideas and actively work on them, reasoning things out, connecting things together. Because let's face it, when our children are younger, some of those connections are slightly wrong, aren't they? They don't have the full language, for example. And I'll give you a lovely example I shared on this page this week. Roman once said to his mummy, "Mummy, your puppy's gone." And Mummy said, "I don't have a dog, I don't have a puppy." And he said, "Yes, you do, your slush puppy." And there was a real confusion in his brain between an icy drink and a real dog. And although it was a funny conversation, to be able to educate Roman then into a slush puppy's not a dog, it's a cold drink, gave him another little piece of information in his brain that helped him to make sense of the world. So when we hear our children say those funny things, I know sometimes we laugh to ourselves, but we mustn't laugh at the child. We must think, what's missing from their knowledge that I can add in here to gently help them weave a more solid web of what the world is like and what we're actually talking about. So this was a really interesting lecture about imagination, and because I have worked a lot with young people with disabilities and autism, I am aware of the fact as well that some of the children, when we speak to them, it's very black and white, it's very concrete. What we say is what we mean, and there is no imaginative thought about that, and they can't always imagine what isn't there. So they need things like their picture timetables and their concrete information. So it's really important when we look at our children as well, we make allowances for, can the child actually imagine what it is that I'm talking about? So if, for example, you're talking to your class about going to a museum and a child has never been to a museum, can they actually imagine what you're talking about? If we're talking about toothache and how painful it is, if you've never had it, can you actually imagine how painful that is? And so all experiences we share with our children, we very much work in the concrete, don't we? When we're setting up our role play area, we set up a role play area based on things that our children may have experienced. Because if they have no experience of it, they can't imagine what they need to do there. So, for example, I once set up one of my little side rooms as a museum, and the children bought tickets as they entered, and they could look at the artifacts but they couldn't remove them. But I did it because we had before that been and visited a local museum. So the children knew what a museum was, they knew we bought tickets to go in, they knew the things were for looking at and some things were for touching, but they knew that we didn't take the items home, they weren't ours to break, they weren't ours to keep. And so they were basing then their imaginative play in their role play museum on real life, on fact. And that's what children do. So imagination is wonderful, but we have to make sure that we have something to work from with our imagination. We have to understand it's difficult to imagine what we've never seen before, what we have no knowledge of. And the imagination actually helps us to develop to the future. It's not just about imagining and fantasy play. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong when they talk about Montessori and people say, yes, but Montessori children aren't imaginative. Well, yes, they are. They imagine amazing things with the creative materials, with the sensorial work. They're thinking, what else can I design with this? It's coming from their imagination. We just don't fill them with fantasy that perhaps we think is better off later on in their life. So we don't, for example, teach our children through a storybook that a rabbit sits in a hole reading a newspaper, because it doesn't. And we need them to be of an age where they understand actually that that's not quite true. That's not how rabbits live. So they don't get confused like the episode with the slush puppy where the child didn't have enough information. So it's really important then that we consider imagination, how important it is, how important imagination is as a skill for the future for our child's developing brain. So, to conclude then for this lovely lecture about imagination, the development of our children can't be left to chance. It's not enough just to give them random materials like sand, water, clay, and then just abandon them. They actually need us to work with them. They need ideas, they need skills. They're not animals, they have human needs. They have need for intelligence and imagination. Children require a beautiful, prepared environment designed for their growth, with adults who understand their needs. So when we're going to give them work things, play things, what is the purpose? What can the children learn from this? What can they do? So within our environment then, children have freedom of choice to follow their own path of development, to imagine their own way through the world. But for us, it comes with an environment that we have prepared. It's not just random. We've thought through everything we have in our environments. And it's interesting to see that in the UK, the government brought out something called the 3 I's, the intent, the implication, and the impact. Well, it's only 100 or so years behind Montessori, whose every activity has an intent, it has a way that you implement it, and it has an impact for the child. What do you intend this activity to do? To develop the child's sensorial skills, to develop their visual discrimination, to help them grade things by size. How do you implement it? Well, we present it and then we leave the child to work and develop their own skills. And the impact of this is we have a child with an active brain who can problem solve, who can find solutions to things, who can build things differently and is proud of their achievements and has the confidence to go on and do something new. And they're incredible 3 eyes, aren't they? But it's all there already in our Montessori equipment. So Montessori says that development can't come from a rigid syllabus. It's got to come from the child's self-construction. It doesn't work, as we see, when everybody's made to follow the same curriculum, because we all have very different interests, and we're not looking to develop robotic style humans who all have the same skills, because we're not made like that. We need an education system where we all play to our strengths and our interests, and we love what we do in life. Yes, most people need a basics of English and maths and an understanding of some general knowledge and some science, but actually we all have individual interests as well to follow, and things that we're going to be good at and skills we're going to have, which might take us off to be an electrician or a carpenter or a computer programmer. There's no telling what we're going to do, but with the opportunities in a Montessori classroom and the imagination to think what you might want to do with your life and to be able to follow your own desire and things to learn, the Montessori environment is perfect for our children. And as Montessori wrote in here, the ultimate goal is the formation of a whole person, of your mind, of your intelligence, and of your personality. So we want to develop, don't we, unique individuals with their own minds, their own ability to think, to solve problems, to come up with ideas, to know the right thing to do, to be able to stop themselves if they know something's wrong, not people who follow the crowd. We want intelligent young people, people who develop to their potential. And we each have a different potential. But to enable your child to develop to their own potential, to be happy, they're the best things in life. We can't want for every child to go to university and get a degree in English, because the majority of children are not going to be interested in that. So it's a false conception. We need to follow our child and follow their interests, and also not to plan our dreams through our child. Just because you wanted something in your career and you didn't maybe get it, you can't put that will onto your child. Your child has to have their own journey through life and be happy with their decisions. So then we have our own minds, we have our own intelligence, we respect everybody's personality and what we're like. And in our Montessori classroom then, if we raise our children to be kind, caring, considerate of the classroom, considerate of the environment, we're setting them out to go out in the world and to be kind and considerate to others, to care for all of the environments in, to show respect for them, to have their own amazing personality but accept other people's personalities too. So that's what this lecture was all about. This was about then the construction of our imagination and how as humans we're so different to other animals. And that features hugely in this book, how as humans, as our human species, we are so unique and so intelligent compared with others. We just need to make good decisions and use our intelligence for good purposes. So I'm going to pose a question after this talk. So this has been live now. It's now going to move on to my YouTube, so you can go on there and watch it on YouTube if you want to. I'm starting to develop a library of videos on YouTube. So things that are slightly longer, I'm popping on YouTube rather than on my Facebook, and then there'll be a library there. So if you're not on my YouTube yet, just find it. It's under my name, Sandra Copping. You'll know as soon as you find the right page, because it's full of Montessori things and past videos that you might appreciate as well, things that you probably won't find on my Facebook page now. They're older videos from a year or two ago, but it's quite easy to go through the library on YouTube and find them. So then, as adults, how can we create the environments where children's imaginative intelligence is nourished rather than left to chance? So if you're working at home as well, if you're home editing or you're a parent at home, think about your environment at home. What can your environment offer to nourish your child? How can you support them to be more independent, to think for themselves, to give them a more understanding of what's going to happen each day as well, rather than just leaving things to chance? So Montessori can be everywhere. You can have a beautiful full Montessori classroom like I have done. You can be Montessori at home, which is very different, but it is about the philosophy. It is about respecting your child. It's about respecting your child's growing personality, enabling them to be as independent as possible at home. And that could be, letting them open their crisp packet rather than doing it for them, putting the cereal in a smaller container so they can pour their own, putting their milk in a little jug so they can pour their own their own milk onto their cereal, a little bottle of juice so they can get their own drink when they want to, putting their coat out so they can put their own coat on, enabling them with a step to be able to stand up and wash their own hands when they need doing. There's so many things that you can do to be Montessori at home and Montessori with your younger children as well. It doesn't have to be Montessori in a classroom, but if you're going to develop a classroom, it's really an all or nothing type thing. If you're going to do the traditional Montessori of education, the fundamentals and the principles that I spoke about in yesterday's training really need to be in place for that to work. But to me, there's different options with Montessori. You can Montessori in a full classroom, and some of you might be qualified teachers and you'll know exactly what I mean. But you can also Montessori with your younger children and be Montessori aligned and respectful of your child and find opportunities and take them out in nature. It's not all about having wooden toys, because some wooden toys don't align with our method at all. You can be Montessori like you see with my mum, enabling independence, supporting her to do as much as she can for herself rather than thinking, oh, it's quicker for me just to make a whole tub of jam. Well, actually that defeats the object, because I'm trying to help my mum remember skill in her life. So if you're at home as a parent, just reflect on what else you can do at home then to help your children be more independent and to feel more valued. And if you're doing home education, think too, what else can we do with the children? How many things do I plan for them? And actually, do I ever say to the children, what should we learn about this week? Could we plan to go somewhere? Can they plan a trip with you? We don't have to deliver everything on their plate ready for them to do. And if you're in a classroom like me, I just love it every day. You know, the children come in and I don't know what they're going to ask me, especially when I'm working one-to-one. I don't know what's happening in their brains and their imagination, but I have to be prepared to meet those needs each day with the materials I have hacked a little bit. So have a wonderful week, whether you're at home or whether you're in schools teaching. Enjoy yourself. Remember to love and cherish those children and enjoy spending the time with them as well. And let's help develop these lovely brains and their imaginations with some really top quality work. Thanks for listening, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.